Really looking forward to this. I'm Andy Hafen. I'm the president of the Henderson Historical Society, and I'd like to welcome Judge Burr and Marc Schifalacqua. I knew I was going to get it. And then Bill Kephart. And of course, Mark Hall is emceeing for us as he usually does. And Marc Hall Patton, that's right. I am sorry. I went to school with the Marc Hall, though. Does that count? Okay. Close enough. Okay. But we do have a couple of announcements. We actually have put together a super cool bus tour that's going to be May 3rd. And if you get on the Henderson Historical Society website or the Nevada Preservation website, there's a link that can take you right to it. Wouldn't you know it? That's not me. And we're going to actually, I guess I can kind of spill the beans here, Val. This will be the first time ever that a bus tour is going to actually be allowed inside the gates at the plants. We're actually going to go inside, stay in the bus, and we'll be escorted, and we'll have some tour guide, somebody from the plants that will give us some information there. So Saturday, May 3rd, 9 o'clock. And we'll start at the Clark County Heritage Museum. I think it's scheduled for just a couple of hours. Also, again, most of you probably are members already of the Historical Society, but tell your friends and neighbors. It's $25 for an annual membership. You get on our HendersonHistoricalSociety.org website. You can see up in the right-hand corner, just click on Join, and it'll take you to the next link. We thrive for members, and we have actually, I say this every single time, but we have lost at COVID, we lost a significant amount of membership, and it's been very, very slow getting that back on. We have just started. We had our first newsletter after many, many years start back up. Again, you can get on our website. You can get on our Facebook page. You can sign up and actually have that delivered to you via email. And it's the very first one is already out. If you haven't seen it, I would encourage you to get on Facebook, our website, and take a look at it. Turned out to be really, really good. And then finally, after the presentation, Marc Hall Patton has donated a book, and so we will choose from the raffle tickets, and he's graciously donated that book. And so I should probably tell you some other upcoming events. Henderson Speaks on Wednesday, March 19th, 2025. We'll entitle it 80 Years in the Past, the Heritage of World War II in Boulder City and Henderson. And the museum is partnering with that. Marc Hall Patton will be here with that too, with a whole bunch of information, I hope too. And that will be actually, the doors open at 5:30. The program starts at 6 p.m. at the museum in the depot there. And we'll be having some flyers come out soon. So with that, Marc, I'm going to turn it over to you to introduce this great panel and sit back and enjoy.
Okay. Just a little bit more on next month's event. The panelists for the March 19th event is, as you heard, me, but also, more importantly, it'll include Dennis McBride, who will be speaking on the history of Boulder City, which is very nice because Dennis doesn't come out very often these days, and I'm looking forward to hearing from him. Also Nathan from the city of Henderson and Alan Goya from the city of Boulder City. So it's a great panel. I am not emceeing that one. I'm actually on the panel. It'll be emceed by Amber, who is the current administrator of the Clark County Museum, my successor there, who is doing a wonderful job. So now what I'm going to do now is introduce our panel here. And I am going to introduce them in the order in which they will be speaking. So, from the far end of our tables here, and I know you know all these people, but nonetheless, you're going to get to listen to me read these page-long biographies. They are, after all, judges. They don't know how to write small things. William Bill Kephart, currently is General Counsel for Laborers International Union of North America, Local 872, practicing primarily in labor relations law. He is a member of the local as well as the international team of litigators that work in both the United States as well as Canada. At Local 872, Bill's duties range from negotiating contracts, handling labor disputes and grievances, while offering legal services to some 10,000 members and their dependents. He has a hard time keeping his days filled. Prior to employment with the Laborers International Union of North America, Bill was elected to the 8th Judicial District Court in 2014. He sat as a Clark County District Court judge in Department 19 for one 6-year term. Bill has served in the justice system for over 3 decades, including as prosecutor in both the Las Vegas City Attorney's Office and the Clark County District Attorney's Office, and both a Justice of the Peace and a District Court judge in Clark County. He was first elected in 2010 to the Justice Court Bench Department 6, and then won a 6-year term in 2014 to the District Court Bench. Bill graduated from Basic High School in 1979 and was... Gee, I think there's some locals here. Or did you salt the audience? I'm not going to say anything there. Was active in sports and Boy Scouts, earning the rank of Eagle Scout. Were you an Order of the Arrow member as well? Okay, just wanted to ask. He attended the University of Nevada, Las Vegas, receiving a BA and BA in Letters degree in criminal justice. Sorry, my wife teaches in sociology. I always hear it as crim justice, but that's all right. He then attended Cleveland Marshall College of Law, earning his Juris Doctorate in May of 1988. He began his career as a deputy city attorney in Las Vegas and then was recruited by the Clark County District Attorney's Office and joined the office as a deputy district attorney in 1990. Bill is a member of the Nevada Bar Association, the Clark County Bar Association, the American Bar Association, and the National District Attorneys Association, the Stop DUI Association or organization, and a former member of the Clark County Prosecutors Association. Moving on. Mark, I'm going to try it. Marc Schifalacqua. Ta-da! Learn how to pronounce every name correctly. Mispronounce every name correctly. Always important. Has proudly served as the Senior Assistant City Attorney Criminal Division for the Henderson City Attorney's Office since 2015. As Henderson's Chief Prosecutor, Marc leads a busy prosecution office with more than 30 employees who handle over 6,000 criminal cases each year. Previously, Marc served as both Deputy District Attorney and Chief Deputy District Attorney with the Clark County District Attorney's Office from 2006 to 2015, where he was assigned to the Special Victims Unit for several years. Marc conducted 45 felony jury trials during his tenure with the Clark County DA's office and was proud to obtain the first jury trial conviction for sex trafficking in Nevada after the law was strengthened in 2013. In 2022, Marc was honored to receive the William J. Raggio Award from the Nevada Advisory Council on Prosecuting Attorneys for his statewide leadership on various legislative issues, including misdemeanor domestic battery jury trials. Marc was the first municipal prosecutor in the history of the Raggio Award to receive this honor. Marc was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Marc received his undergraduate degree from Xavier University, Cincinnati, Ohio, in 2001. After graduating from Xavier, Marc then obtained his Juris Doctor from the William Mitchell College of Law, St. Paul, Minnesota, in 2004, where Marc served on both moot court and law review. Marc has lived in Henderson for the past 18 years and does so with his wife and 2 children. Well, I'm glad you do so with your wife. Good. And moving right along, Judge Burr is currently serving as Municipal Court Judge, City of Henderson, Department 3. He was appointed Municipal Court Judge in April of 2016. He has served continuously for 32 years as a judge. He previously served as a Clark County Justice of the Peace for over 25 years, 1990 to 2016. Prior to his election to the bench, Judge Burr served as a Deputy District Attorney for the Clark County District Attorney's Office. His past career-related activities have included past President, Nevada Judges Association, consultant and member, Urban Court Workload Assessment Committee, Rose Commission, regional representative, DUI Assessment Center Committee, Building Committee, City of Henderson, and as an alternate for the Nevada Judicial Discipline Commission. Judge Burr is a past recipient of the Judge of the Year Award by the Nevada Conference of Police and Sheriffs. He has served on the board and as past president of the Henderson Chamber of Commerce. He is a member of the American Judges Association, the Nevada Judges Association, and the Nevada and Clark County Bar Association. He attended basic high school. There you go. And received his BA in 1983 from UNLV. He received his Juris Doctorate from the University of the Pacific McGeorge School of Law in 1986. Over the years, Judge Burr has been active in the community, having served various times as a youth sports coach and as a leader for the Boy Scouts of America. Judge Burr and his wife Annette have 4 children and 10 grandchildren. He has been a resident of Henderson for 58 years. Now that they've been introduced, I am going to turn it over to Bill to come up here and give his talk. What we are going to do is let each judge give their talk, and then I will open it up to questions from the audience. So hold on to your questions until everyone has spoken. Okay, Bill.
Thank you. All right. Well, thank you. That was really nice. I recognize a number of you out here. And I tell you, I've spoke to a number of different programs. I taught in the academy. I've taught in classes and that, and I was actually really nervous about coming tonight because you're all from here, and that's where, so am I. Judge Burr and I, we both went to basic high school, and I think all of us that have went to basic high school all have a shirt or something that says something like basic football or basic soccer, and I was a big soccer player, and I wore this shirt all the time, said basic soccer, and everyone that saw it was like, what is that? Was that like just normal soccer? Or, and no, that's where I went to school. Oh, did you get like a basic education or a good education? That kind of, I hear it all the time. So, but when we were asked to talk on this topic, they were asking us to relate with you with regards to the judicial system here in Henderson, municipal court and the justice court. When we kind of collaborated on it, we tried to set it to where we're not going to speak over each other and copy each other, because it's a pretty broad topic, and we're all basically, we have somewhat of the same background, that we've all practiced in the courts, we've all ran the courts, and so what I want to talk about here, I have 15 minutes. I want to talk a little bit about how the Henderson court is really only like 7 years older than me. It's really young, the way I feel, and Henderson has always, since I was old enough to kind of understand what was happening and seeing what was going on, and a lot of you can relate to this. Henderson's always had like a small town feel about it, and I think Henderson's always tried to hold on to that. The problem is it's growing so drastically fast that it's harder and very difficult to hold on to that same idea. So what I wanted to address here and let you guys kind of mull around is that how the police department and its growth has affected the justice system. not in a way negative, so to speak, but how it's I mean, we have now, when for the longest time we had one justice court judge, we had one municipal court judge. Now we have 3 of each. Is that right? We have 3, right? Yeah. And so, you know, Henderson, for all of you that are historians, and a lot of this you're seeing is probably coming from, where's the thing? Here it is. This is basically how we started. You know, for all of you, and I heard the mayor tell us that you're going to hear a little bit about World War II and what was behind, what kind of brought Henderson around. And for all of you that already understand that, I mean, for the longest time, you know, basic management or the Kennecott copper and all that was you know, getting the magnesium or whatever what we needed for World War II, and it really wasn't a city. It was just like a spot out here that they were using to get material to support the war effort. And after a period of time, Henderson grew to the, down here is the, these are old pictures. A lot of you know these pictures. You've probably seen them in your books. That down there is the old softball field or baseball field we used to play on the end of Water Street. That's the bottom of Water Street. Those are the plants. You can see that. Right here that I circled, that's City Hall, the jail, and the court system back as I remember it. Matter of fact, right here was a big park. And for all of you that grew up in my age, we called it Pig Park. Don't mean to be mean, but that's because that's where the police were and everything. Henderson actually, you know, it didn't get incorporated until 1951. Actually, in 1941, they had a constable's office here. But it wasn't really the Henderson Constable's Office. It was a constable's office to kind of address what was going on in this area. But it was very limited when we talk about criminal matters and civil matters, whatever, very limited to the point where they didn't have a court at all to answer to other than the Las Vegas Justice Courts. Judge, you keep me on line here if I talk out of line, because I remember him when I was screwing up. But so I know him real well. No, but in 1945 is when they changed the name of the high school. The high school that I went to is basic high school. It used to be Railroad Pass High School. They changed it in 1945. They didn't even incorporate the city until 1953. Henderson actually incorporated. At that same point in time, they actually got a chief of police, and they started a police department, same year, 1953. And what's interesting is that from what I could find, George Grisler, he was the police chief, and he made $4,000 a year was his salary, and he had 5 patrolmen that worked for him. They had 1 car, and the car was a loaner from the sheriff's department. So when I say that is the Clark County Sheriff had jurisdiction over, they still do, over all the unincorporated areas, and even in the incorporated areas, that's what the justice courts are dealing with. Matter of fact, jump forward a little bit, I think it was in the 70s, I know it was, Sheriff Lamb was trying to, when he developed the Metropolitan Police Department, they, I guess, what's the word? They absorbed the city of Las Vegas Police Department. Somebody that was kind of like a grandfather to me, but really wasn't by blood. He lived across the street. He was an old Las Vegas police officer, and I actually did, when I had Nevada history in UNLV, we all had to take Nevada history. I wrote a paper on him because he talked about Fremont Street still having wooden sidewalks. So it was interesting to do that. I kind of like history. So when Sheriff Lamb tried to absorb, he was trying to absorb Henderson and North Las Vegas and Boulder City as well. I don't think Mesquite was incorporated yet, but they were trying to absorb those police departments as well. And Henderson fought that. And because Henderson fought it, and Henderson at that time was very small. There was only 25, I think, patrol officers. And their fight, though, was so strong, North Las Vegas joined, and so did Boulder City. So it tells you, and Henderson's police department was in the forerunner for that. What I mean, they were out there saying, hey, we don't want to do this, we want to have our own police department. Well, once you incorporate and you have your own police department, then that gives way to the municipal court. And this was back then, I don't know exactly when, but this was the actual City of Henderson seal. And the reason I use it is because it has the old B that was above the old basic high school that's now Burr Junior High School. And I just like that. It was on Black Mountain, but you can see, even with the city growing, things started changing. This was the police department, and the reason I have this here is because it's in front of Henderson City Hall, that building I showed you that was over by the park and that has the jail, that had the city hall, and it had the courtrooms in there. And I remember your courtroom was in here. So the reason I put this up here is if you count this, these are in the this was actually 1957. I wrote that out. Can you see my handwriting? It's beautiful. But 1957 is when this picture, I believe, was taken. There's one female police officer. Her name was Joy Frank. She actually was hired as the first female police officer in the city of Henderson in 1955. So the population of the city of Henderson in 19, when they first incorporated, was about a little over 7,000 people. I bring that up because my mother, I was telling a story, my mother was the head of the OB ward for St. Rose de Lima then. It used to be St. Rose de Lima. And when she passed, Dr. Bauer, Dr. Hazeltine, and that was one of the doctors, they showed up and spoke at my mom's funeral, and they had got together and calculated that she had delivered close to 11,000 babies. So when I think of that, and a lot of my buddies, their kids, they delivered my son, delivered all the Roundy's kids. Okay, see? And so I kind of get a kick out of that because I think my mom delivered like the whole city of Henderson. In the 70s, when the police department started picking up, and they had a few more individuals that went in. I can tell you there was a population in the city of Henderson in the early 70s was around 22,000 people now. And you'll understand my theme when I start what I'm getting at here. The police officers were making about $6,500 to about $8,000 a year. That's what they were getting paid. Now, I will tell you, Mark, he did how many jury trials? I mean, I don't know, 50 jury trials. I did 133 jury trials, and I'll tell you.
Did you switch? Is it on?
It's on now. Okay. And so we've seen, and the judge can tell you too, we've seen a tremendous amount of criminal behavior that's come out of this valley. When I started back, I started with Judge Burr. He was there about a year, and then he went and got elected to the Justice Court bench. And I was fortunate to come out and practice in front of Judge Burr. Everybody wanted to go to Henderson to practice. It was always because he's just such a nice guy, and it was really a treat. One of my investigators is here now. She's from Henderson. We kind of tried to keep it all together so we'd understand things. It kind of was it was a treat, but sometimes it was kind of a burden because we knew everybody. When I graduated from high school in 1979, there was only 25,000 people in the whole city of Henderson. So it didn't grow really that much. 90 was, it was starting to get a little bit bigger, but it wasn't huge. And so there was so many times where I'd be in court and you hear a psst, psst, and you look around and somebody's in custody and they know me and they're trying to get something from me, or they're saying stuff and they're asking me things, hey, can you help me do this? Can you help me? I won't do it again. I've never done, that kind of thing. In 1979, there was 25 patrolmen, 5 sergeants, 5 lieutenants, and then the chief of police. The jail that is right here behind this had 16 cells, and then by the time they built, there's another one. This is when the city of Henderson Municipal Court was established. That's your seal. Then they're changing. We're still changing. I just put this up because it kind of irritated me a little bit because we keep changing things. But that's the city. That's that park and everything. That's the police officers who were standing right in front of that sign over there. And then there's another change. That's City Hall now. That's the justice system now. I mean, the justice. In that, there's the jail's here, and so is the courts. They have 3 community court judges, 3 justice court judges. They're doing jury trials now. They're doing quite a bit more. The jail has 140 cells. So, and I know they try to fill it, but in 1995, Las Vegas, through a U.S. consensus, was the fastest growing city in the United States. Henderson was the fastest growing city in the United States. Today they have 5 high schools. We talked a little bit earlier about going to basic high school, and some of the things that I've seen that I'm critical of is that the opportunity, in my opinion, to go to basic high school under the circumstances that we had gave me a great education. We knew everybody. We hung with everybody. There was no real separation between the rich and the poor and the minorities and the non-minorities. I think that gave me a great opportunity or great perspective on things here. And to this day, I have some of my greatest friends or individuals that I think if they'd have grown up in a different place would have probably suffered a little bit more than what they did here in Henderson. Unfortunately, with the growth of Henderson, you have the growth of the police department. It's just a better picture. I like that one better. And there's a close-up of it. I showed you a picture earlier of the police officers in like 1957. Here it just shows you a little bit understanding of what this is. One squad. The other one was the full police department. This is one squad, and you can see the diversity here. And then you have, and that's in front of the jail there. And then we had one female before. Now we have a female chief of police. And whatever your thoughts are about it, I'm not trying to profess support or not. It's just that for the purpose of my speech, it's interesting that that's how far we've come. But what it's done though, and I'm not saying negatively, it's just the growth. The courts have to be able to stay with it. They have to be able to handle it. You heard Marc talking, his introduction about how many cases that they're handling every year. I remember when I was in the DA's office, Judge Burr can talk about it. There's like 70-some thousand cases a year we were getting. 70-some thousand. That's Las Vegas though, and that handles, all of Las Vegas, all of Clark County, and that. But and Henderson was a big part of it. And now Henderson's 600,000 people. I was telling you before, there was 25 police officers before. Now we're up to, I think it's 400 and something. 400 and some police officers. And they have. I will tell you, Henderson was ahead of things though. They were the first to innovate and use certain radio systems that other police departments weren't using that helped them to communicate better. I want to tell you just a quick couple stories that kind of plays into my thoughts about the growth and everything. Is that when the city grows, obviously crime grows. Police department has to be bigger, jails have to be bigger, courts have to be bigger, just to handle the sheer volume. One thing a criticism I have of that, and when we go back to the thought I started saying that we want to be a small community, we've always wanted to be a small community. I have always professed that the police department is one area and the courts is another area that helps still cultivate that thought. And the reason why is because of community policing. We've got away from that for some reason. It's not just Henderson. Anytime something gets bigger, is my time up? But when things grow, for some reason the police department is the one that seems to take on the loss of the small city. And I'll tell you one place right here. If you just look at them, can you count the individuals that are smiling? Yeah, it's very limited compared to how many people are here. Now, I'm not trying to begrudge them. I'm not trying. Please don't take it that way. I'm just showing, and I don't know if that's what they're taught to be like that, or that's how they're supposed to be. Now, if we go back to the other one, all those guys seem to be like, yeah, this is pretty cool. There's a few people that are serious and stoic and that, but they're the first contact to our citizenry. They're the first ones that come into contact with our victims, come into contact with our criminals. That's them. When I was in high school, we used to get away with a lot of stuff. Things have changed. I mean, police officer, we get in trouble, they take us home and then keep our parents from beating us up too bad. But I'll tell a story about one. Behind the old basic high school, when I was going to school there was nothing behind basic high school. You could see all the way to the B up there on the mountain and that. It was all just full desert. Right behind the visitors football side, it was just dirt. They put some new homes that were just, I guess it would be south of basic high school, and there was a pavement that went along the baseball field, and then it turned into dirt behind the football field. Well, after the football games, a lot of us would all get together out there, and kids are kids, drinking and doing what we're not supposed to be doing. But one night we were all out there, a whole bunch of us, talking and drinking and farting around. And next thing you know, that whole paved road was lit up. The police officers are coming. We're in trouble. Something's happening tonight. I don't know. And if you went the other way, if you went north, it was all desert. Well, I had my mom's car. And I took off, everybody split, and I took off and I went through the desert area, got all the way home. I remember pulling home and going in, and my dad's out, what's going on? How come you're home so early? Oh, nothing, Dad. We're just it kind of got old, so we were home. So it wasn't very much longer. I knock on the door, and it's a police officer. I'm not going to tell you who it was because you probably all know him. But he's like, I answered the door, and he goes, hey, I want to, is your dad home? And I grew up in a trailer, so Dad's sitting right there. He could see him. I go, he's right here. So my dad's like, what's going on? And he goes, I want to show you something, and you might want to bring your son. So we go out, and he takes a flashlight and he shines it underneath my mom's car, and there's a puddle of oil. And then he takes the flashlight and he shines it behind the car, and there's an oil trail that goes out and goes up the road. And he starts, oh my God, something happened to your car. I mean, I'm glad I drove by. I saw this oil thing, and I wanted to talk to you about it. And I'm like, okay. So he goes, let's go see where it come from. So I'm like, dang, So he gets he asked my dad to get in the car, and he asked me to get in the car, and I get in, and he's got a cage, and I'm sitting, first time, I'm like, I don't know, 17 years old, 18 years old, and I'm sitting in the squad car, and I'm, oh my God, I'm in trouble. And the whole way, this cop is talking to my dad, and he's pointing out, oh man, look at that. God, I'm so glad we found that. It could burn, that's a good car. You could burn that up. We're so glad we caught it now. We get it fixed. And he's following, he goes, where's this going? And he's following it, and he drives it up all the way up Pueblo, and it goes off behind the boys club, and it goes out into the desert. Oh man, who would drive a car like this in the desert? I can't believe that car was out here in the desert. Did you loan your car to somebody, Mr. Kephart, or was that you? That guy, he's doing that. And I'm sitting back there, and he goes, no, but I have a good idea who it was. And I'm just, oh God, I'm in trouble. I just don't want to go home. We go all the way behind Basic High School, back there in the back where we were all drinking and that. And you remember the old Ernest and Gallo wine bottles that had like this on the bottom of the wine bottle? And they were about this tall. I hit that sucker right dead in the center, and it tore the oil plug back a little bit. Just not enough to jump it all out, but it was enough to cause that all the way home. And I'm just like, dang, I don't know even what to say. So we go home, and it's pretty somber on the way home. I'm not saying nothing. My dad's like, I can't even repeat some of the things he's telling this police officer. So we get home. And my dad gets out, and you can't get out the back door of those cars unless somebody opens it for you. And I'm in the back of that seat. And Dad gets out, and the window goes down, and he's talking to my dad through the window, and he goes, "Okay, all right, Mr. Kephart, I'll see you later." Dad walks off, and he drives off. He drives up the road, and I'm thinking, God, I must be going to jail or something. He's going to be putting me in jail. And he goes all the way up to the end of the street, and then he turns around. He says, "Did you learn anything?" And then he gets out, and he goes, "Do I need to go back with you to make sure that everything's okay between you and your dad?" And I said, "Well, maybe. I'm not sure." So he puts me out, and I walk back. It's probably about, I don't know, a couple hundred feet. I walk back, and my dad's standing in the driveway, and he's still looking at the car and everything. And I'm walking down the street, and where I lived, it was a really quick block, and so the police officer went around, he came back up the street. So about the same time I got hooked up with my dad, he come around the corner again. And then he rolled the window down, and he said, Mr. Kephart, don't be too bad on your son. There was a lot of people back there that night. And so I never forget that. Next day, because I knew Donnie Ellis and Bobby Ellis, and they owned Snap Bottle, I was, that morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm under, because I had a double header the next day. I'm out there taking an oil pan off an old motor and putting it back on my mom's car before I could leave. But nothing happened. My dad didn't beat me or nothing. I fully expected it was going to happen. But that is just one. I have a ton of stories, but that's just one story that between me and the police department, that when I was younger, that I always felt, and so I carried that with me, and I'll tell you why. I think it was in front of Judge Burr, because when I went to law school, and then I went to court, who do you think had to be in there? This officer. And he's, are you Billy Kephart? He said, I'm like, oh yeah, who are you? And then he proceeds to tell me a story, and I thought he told. Do you remember him telling you? Okay. so I'm like this. Oh, let me puff up my chest. I'm a prosecutor now, and I'm getting this from the police officer. But I will tell you that we've lost some of that. We don't have that community policing anymore. And I'm not saying it's their fault. It's just they're put into such huge requirements and stuff as a police officer. I mean, and let alone, with some of the tenure now. I mean, a lot of you, I'm looking at probably a lot of my generation in here that still understands what respect police officers. I mean, when I was a little kid and I was taught to always say hello to a police officer, and I respected them. Now the respect is spitting on them and calling them names. So when I made a comment about calling that park Pig Park, it's probably not, it was probably more derogatory than it should be. But a lot of the police officers knew it, and they did it too. They tell us, "Hey, meet us at Pig Park," and that. And we knew most all of our police officers. We had that luxury because there was only, like I said, 20, 40 police officers or whatever. We had that luxury that we don't have now. And what I have seen as being a prosecutor and a judge and even a defense attorney, I handle cases for my office, is that because we've lost a lot of that, it's the message that the courts are trying to put to our criminals and our victims is kind of lost somewhere in translation because we're so overburdened. I'll tell you, I've had an opportunity to handle a few cases with some of Marc's deputies and to walk in there, and I remember my cases. Hundreds of cases. Judge Burr can tell you, when I was on the Justice Court bench, it wasn't in Las Vegas. It wasn't unfounded that we'd have 100 cases a day. So how are you supposed to put any kind of work in that? I don't know, Judge. What do you think? I remember appearing before Judge Potter. I remember appearing before Jim Jensen. Jensen was our municipal court judge, and then Potter was our justice court judge. One other story, and then I know I probably went over. I did, yeah. When I was in law school, I was with my brother. He's from here. He still lives in Henderson and that. And we were hauling wood for the Boy Scouts. They were cutting wood, and we were hauling wood into my pickup truck and delivering them to people for wood burning stoves and that. And we get pulled over by a Henderson police officer, and he gets my brother and I out, gets us slammed down the hood of a car. And I'm in law school, so now I know everything about the law. What are you doing? How dare you? Can't do this stuff. That kind of stuff. And when it all got done, figured out, one of the sergeants came up and he actually said something to the officer to see whether or not he had identified who we were ahead of time, because they had somebody that met kind of our description in the color pickup truck and that's why they grabbed it, pulled us over. So I understood that. But then the officer proceeds to cite me. I was so pissed off about that. I went to court on that. I was in front of Ken Proctor. But the court then, to be honest with you, since sitting as a judge, and Judge Burr can tell you, and we have Joan Potter here, is that the court then now has kind of stepped into that position as being the community policer. And so that's kind of what's happening, but it's smothering the courts too. So, but I could talk all night. I'm a lawyer, so I appreciate your time. I'm gonna turn it over to. Let me see. I got a couple more pictures of it. That's the new seal, by the way. So, I don't like that one, but who am I? All right, Mark.
Okay, thanks, buddy. You got to restart, or are you good? We're good. Okay. Welcome, everyone. My name is Marc Schifalacqua. Let me just answer the question you all have. It's Italian, my last name. Apparently, it means ship on water, Schifalacqua. So that's what I've been told. Great news. I'm happy to announce that all the crimes that Bill just confessed to, the statute of limitations has run. So even though I'm Henderson's chief prosecutor, he's got immunity. So thank you for being so open, Bill. We're so happy that you invited me. I really appreciated this. As you heard, I am not from here originally, but Henderson is my home. There has been so much great things that Henderson has given to me, and I was so happy to speak on this topic. One building has meant so much to me in my family's life, and that's the building we're going to talk about. That's the Henderson Justice Court and Municipal Court building. So, as you heard, I moved to Henderson in May of 2006. I moved from Wisconsin. You probably could tell that by the way I just said Wisconsin. And my mom and dad were moving out here to Sun City Anthem. And at the time, my wife and I decided to take a chance and move out here. And we moved directly to Henderson. I was hired with the district attorney's office in 2006 as a law clerk. And in 2007 was promoted to deputy district attorney. And one of my very first assignments was in the Henderson Justice Court. My wife was a prosecutor at the time as well. We were hired together. It was not easy to hide that fact with our last name, but we both started together, and there was two departments at that time, Department 1, Department 2. And Barbara, my wife, went to Department 1, which was Judge Burr, her first week, and my first week I went to the other department, Judge George, in Department 2. So we started in this building within a week of starting our professional careers, and we've really spanned it since then, so we're so proud about that. In 2012 to 15, I was assigned to our Special Victims Unit in the District Attorney's Office. I particularly handled all of our sex trafficking cases, victims of prostitution. I felt very passionately that, sometimes folks don't have a lot of people to stand up for them, and sometimes we need to stand up for those in society that don't have anybody to stand up for them. And so I fought very hard on those cases for my time there, and I was very proud of that. We did get the first, as Mark had mentioned in my bio, thank you, the first guilty verdict at a jury trial for sex trafficking in the state of Nevada in 2014. And so I was very proud of that. And I worked closely with the Metropolitan Police Department's Vice Unit. They're the one that investigate those particular crimes. And they, after I won, made me my own pimp cup. So, but it's the Pimp Slayer, so I thought that was very nice. I have that in my office if you ever stop by to the Justice Facility. I don't drink out of it, though, at work. So a lot of people say, I'm essentially Henderson's chief prosecutor. And, do you like the people you're going against, the people on the other side, the opposing attorney, or do you guys hate each other, And the reality is some people we like that we go against as attorneys, and some people we don't like so much. Most people I get along with on the defense bar, I really do. But there's a couple people that I don't. We're oil and water. So I brought a transcript of me and this one attorney who don't like each other, how we got into it on the record, if you'd like to see it. He's not tall. He's a short guy, okay? And he was trying to make a point about how tall the suspect was. He was cross-examining the victim and trying to get a relation of height to how tall was the defendant compared to the victim. So I had to object at some point just to get him. So let me show you what we did here. So I took out of his name, just so you know, but so this person was under 4.5 feet tall. Was he over 4.5 feet tall? Would you consider me to be a tall, what do you consider to be a tall person? Well, like taller. Let me ask him this. Do you consider me to be a tall person? No. All right, and for the record, I'm 5'7". I object to that. I bet he's 5'5". I'm definitely 5'6 3/4 when I stand up straight. There is a 5'7". So, I just had to do that. He's not happy with me still, but that's okay. So sometimes we get along, sometimes we really don't. All right. So in 2015, 2015, I was hired at the Henderson City Attorney's Office. So I moved from the DA's office to the City Attorney's Office, which is also in the building that we're all talking about, the Swaddell Justice Facility at 243 Water. So wanted to mention a couple prior Henderson city attorneys that went on to be elected or appointed officials. We have Senator Harry Reid, Majority Leader. He was the Henderson City Attorney from 1964 to 1966. We have Kent Dawson. He was the City Attorney from 1972 to 79. He was later on Justice of the Peace and also federal court judge. So some very, very famous people. Want to recognize one more famous person, my friend Josh Reed here. Josh actually hired me in the office, and I'm so grateful to him. I still remember him offering me the position in 2015. It was at a breakfast place on Green Valley Parkway, and every time I drive by with my kids, I said, "That's where Josh offered me the job, right there." So that is so I really do appreciate him and giving me this opportunity. So, what is the city attorney's office? You know, you say that, it sounds like a private law firm, but we're in the building. What do we do here? Well, we have 21 attorneys, and there's two divisions, criminal and civil. This is our current city attorney, Nick Vaskov. He made us all get these, I call them glamour shots, but they're headshots. His is very nice. I'll show you mine in a minute. I'm not too happy with mine, but I'll show it to you in a second. So the city attorney is the chief legal advisor to the city council. So he represents and advises the city council and the mayor. And the civil division gives guidance to all the elected officials. They appear in front of all the boards, the commissions, and they represent the city if the city gets sued or has involved in contract negotiations. So any type of board or litigation, that's what our civil division does. So I'm in charge of our criminal division, and that's in 243 Water. So we prosecute all misdemeanor offenses that occur in the city. So we appear before the Henderson Municipal Court, and so any misdemeanor that occurs in Henderson, that comes through the municipal court. And here's my headshot. I'm not thrilled with it, but it's okay. All right. Okay, so here's our building. This is where I work, where Judge Burr works. We have two courts in there. You heard Justice Court, Municipal Court. Well, what goes in what court? You know, we got 3 levels of crime in Nevada, and that'll tell you which court we're going to. We got felonies, gross misdemeanors, or misdemeanors. Our felony, that just means it's punishable by more than a year in prison. That's all that means. And we have a lot of different levels in Nevada. We go by letters. Some states do different things. We go by letters, A, B, C, D, E, okay? A is the most serious, going all the way down to E. So we start with murder, and we go down to drug possession at the end. So if that's where it is, you're going to justice court. If that's the crime, you go through our justice court. Gross misdemeanors are up to a year in jail. Some examples would be like battery on an officer. And you'd also be going to justice court. So any gross misdemeanor felony, we're going to justice court. All right, misdemeanors. So that's up to 6 months in jail. They're actually the most common type of crime that we have in Nevada. Most crime is actually misdemeanors. So that would be DUI, domestic violence, trespass, petty larceny. And that would go to the Henderson Municipal Court, which is where Judge Burr currently is right now. So, some trivia. How many DUI cases do you think we prosecute every year in the Henderson Municipal Court? 600. We do 600 a year. Sometimes it's a little more. So it's a lot of DUI offenses that occur in Henderson. All right, domestic violence. What do you think? Too many. Too many. 1,000. Yeah, it's D. It's D. And like what was mentioned earlier, we're now doing jury trials for domestic violence. Our Supreme Court ruled that since you lose your right to have a gun, if you get a domestic violence conviction, they said you got to have a higher level of due process, so you get a jury trial. So we're doing those in the municipal court. So the municipal court had to construct a brand new courtroom that would allow a jury to be seated. Before that, we didn't have courtrooms that frankly had chairs for jurors. So we just finished construction on that a couple years back, and we are doing jury trials right now. It's the only misdemeanor in Nevada that you would get a jury trial for. Everything else would be just heard by the judge. So we are very busy. One piece, so this building, 243 Water Street, has defined so much of my life. I'm so grateful for it. The history is there. I started a week there. I worked every day for the last 10 years there. But something else I wanted to share, we just elected the first woman justice of the peace in the history of the city of Henderson. And that person is my wife, Barbara. So those are our kids, Sophia and John, and that's Barbara, that's me. And anyway, so a little bit of history there. First woman ever elected to Justice of the Peace is Barbara Schifalacqua. So you can't forget that last name, right? So thank you so much. This was very kind of you to invite me. This place has meant so much to me, to my family, obviously. And if you ever need anything, just call us Schifalacqua. All right.
All right, good evening. I'm batting cleanup here, and I'm glad I did because I had some notes. I don't want to repeat anything about what the city attorney may do or jurisdiction or what Bill said about the police department. Andy also told me I had to be mindful because a lot of you, it's getting close to bedtime. Is that right? I don't know. Andy? The only other question I had for Bill, because I'm wondering, you started with Chief Chrysler, you ended with Chief Chadwick. How many years did Chief Chrysler last? That's a joke. Never mind. Because, we go through chiefs like tissue here, so. All right. Now, so I just want to hit on the locations of the court and some of the things, I don't know if you remember, because, and I could go through, I got a list of all the judges. Delwyn's here, wonderful. He's a lot of history. He knows so much. But I just wanted to go over, for example, the first courthouse was on Van Wagenen Street, temporary city hall in the 50s. The new city hall, back then was a new city hall, was in 1963. And then one of the ones I remember growing up was the one on Atlantic and Pacific. And I don't know if you remember passing by the townhouse home, and Delwyn was there, but he actually had a neon sign which said Justice Court and Delwyn Potter, and it was lit up, and I loved it. I knew one of the clerks there who eventually stayed and worked for me, and she said it was interesting in that because we'd be having court, and all of a sudden the judge was talking, and the toilet was flushing. And it kind of interrupted what the judge was saying, so he had to repeat it. But to have the toilet flush in the middle of court is something unique and would only happen in Henderson. From there, I don't know if you remember Henderson Junior High, but we had Henderson Junior High, then eventually we had Brown, we had Burkholder, but that's where the court moved to the old Henderson Junior High, and they were in classrooms. And then finally, the county would not build a justice court. And so Judge Tabney got his friend Claude Howard to donate some money, and he was a contractor, and he built onto the city hall and the city municipal court the justice court. So we finally had a building in Justice Court, and that's where eventually I started, was in that building. I thought it was interesting, you know, Bill talks about the jail. About that time, we were the only jail that actually had bars. And so we had several movie productions when they were in town that would come to Henderson and want to film in Henderson so they could get the actors behind bars. And one of those was Kenny Rogers when he was doing The Gambler #2. And he actually pulled up his bus right outside my chambers, and had the opportunity to meet him, and really nice guy. But anyway, it's just something unique to Henderson that they didn't have in Vegas, they didn't have anywhere else. And that's because the old flavor, we still had bars on our jails, which I thought was interesting. Now, one of the things that happened during that time was the PepCon blast, all right? Now, the PepCon blast, of course, was felt all over. And court was in session during the PepCon blast. And I don't know where you were, you can probably think back where you were, what was happening, but everybody automatically said, what is that? And some people went outside the courthouse and they could see an actual moving wave coming at them after that second blast. And so they just took off, all right? Court staff, the judge, the corrections officers. But what they, well, no, that's my point. What they forgot is one of the criminals was in a holding cell. And they forgot to let him out. They forgot to escort him. He stayed there for 24 hours. They come back the next day. There he is in the cell, the holding cell, waiting. Say, what's happening? How come nobody let me out? And so it was interesting that he had to stay overnight in a holding cell. And it's not like a regular jail cell, but there at the courthouse. I thought that was interesting to share with you. Eventually, a new courthouse was approved along with a new city hall. And remember the convention center? Well, we moved to the convention center, and that's where we were temporarily while they were building the new courthouse, city hall, things of that nature. And I just wanted to mention a couple things that happened there, because we had to modify and use things. We used the Sally Port to hold prisoners. And one day, I don't know if you remember Captain Rodney, but the police department already built their building. He was up on the top floor, and all of a sudden, he sees this person in an orange jumpsuit running across the parking lot, and there was somebody waiting for him. They had it planned, an escape, just perfect. And he was able to escape from that Sally Port because it was terrible, the security. So he calls down to the marshals and say, hey, you got somebody running. He's just about gone. And they were able to catch up to him before he actually escaped. But that was one of the more interesting times. The other one was, I don't know if you remember, sometimes we have regulars in court, and back then we had regulars. And you probably remember Marvin, right? And Marvin was one of our regulars, and he was in the Sally Port being held as a prisoner. And all of a sudden, one of the clerks go back and they see Marvin, and he is helping himself to a donut and a cup of coffee. And they ask, Marvin, what are you doing? He said, I'm just having a donut and a cup of coffee. Well, he slipped his cuffs, and nobody paid attention. He was able to just do whatever he wanted. Luckily, he didn't make the escape, but it was, at the time, disconcerting, but when you think back on it, hilarious. So we move into the new courthouse. And by the way, I've got to have my assistant update my resume because, I don't know, I'm going back and forth because it makes me seem a lot younger than I am with the years that are listed that I served as a judge. So, but anyway, that's another story. But I've been in Henderson for approximately 60 years now, and I love it. What a great community. So sometimes we get some interesting cases, and I'll just kind of end on this because I know you've been here a while. We get some interesting cases where defendants are interesting. And one day we had a defendant who was in custody. We have video arraignments, and the defendant said, Judge, I need to get out because my mom passed away. Need to go to the funeral. I said, oh, really? And this happens every now and then. I'll usually ask him, well, give me the obituary. Let me see. Sometimes it, I feel really sorry and soft-hearted, and I learned not to do that. But I've been disappointed too many times. But anyway, he said his mother was dead. And Monday he comes back. The mother had heard of it, and the mother was in the audience. And I had the man on screen, and I said, well, I was calling Mr. Smith. Got some good news and bad news. You don't have to worry about going to a funeral, and your mom's alive. In fact, she's right here in court. And his jaw just dropped, and the mother was so upset that he would claim that, she was dead. And so we get a lot of humorous stories like that. And I know time's escaping us. We've had some good information. So I just want to end with it. It's so good. I know so many here, and so good to catch up. And I love history. In fact, I love talking about old Henderson. I remember, and I've told many this, that came from a small town in Utah, moved here when I was 6. My dad was working for Kephart, and he was going to Timet. And the only thing I wanted to know from my dad is, so Dad, we going to a big city? He said, yeah. I said, so that means it has a stoplight, right? He said, yeah, it's got one stoplight. And I said, oh man, we've hit the big time. But anyway, I think there, somewhere around 17,000 people at the time. But it was, and is still, such a wonderful community. We have such wonderful people here. I'm just so grateful that I was able to settle here, that I've been able to serve as judge in justice court and in municipal court. It's been, a wonderful experience, at times sad because of the circumstances you find people in and some of the situations that they end up in. But overall, it's been a great experience. And, I was just talking, that's why I said my secretary or my assistant needs to update my resume, because I've got about 46 years judging. And so everybody walks up to me and says, so when are you going to retire? And I said, well, I don't have a hobby. I don't golf. I don't really do anything. And I said, the main reason I don't is because my wife said I'd drive her crazy if I stayed home. So as long as I'm enjoying what I'm doing, I'm going to keep doing it, and I'm enjoying it. We've got a good group in municipal court, get to work with Marc and his staff, and it's good things. And I hope you know that here in Henderson, we're in good hands. We've got some good officers. We have some good city attorneys and wonderful staff that tries their best to serve the public in a professional manner. So I just want to thank you for letting me come and share a little bit of history and stories that hopefully make you smile a little bit. So thanks for having me.
Well, I want to say thank you to our panelists. I will open it up for questions. I see one in the back there.
I don't know what a sally port is.
Oh, okay, so the convention center, that is where they would pull the truck in and unload food, drink, because they would still use it as a convention center in the front, and they had weddings there. We were partitioned off, and we had court, about half of it, and they still held weddings, but the Sally Port was used for deliveries, and we'd also use it to hold prisoners.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yes, ma'am.
Do we still have a community police unit or not?
Well, who wants to answer? Go ahead.
Mark?
I wouldn't say it's necessarily like that. They are, assigned by area command and then specific zones, but the exact model that maybe you're referring to, I don't think there's that same model.
Because they're wonderful people.
Yes.
Oh, yes, in the back.
So I had a question about DUIs. It appears, maybe I'm seeing it wrong, but it appears like since the 80s, take it, that there's more of a slap on the wrist with the walkaways for those that have been convicted. I was just kind of curious of why that is, or if that's not correct.
When you say a walkaway, what do you mean?
Well, I mean, it seems like the sentences, or, well, for instance, I'll think of the person that killed the mom and the young kids over on Lake Mead there by the Walmart. He was out rather quickly before his court time. And so I remember back in the 80s with MAD, stop DUIs, or whatever they may be, that it seemed like that people were held a lot longer before trial. Maybe I'm wrong on that, but that's just what it appears to me.
Sure, go ahead. So there's a couple of things. Of course, in municipal court, we handle strictly misdemeanors. And sometimes with a blood case, the blood isn't tested soon enough, so they're released until we know what the blood alcohol is. But then there's nobody that was seriously injured. And then they come back. But I know what you mean with felonies. It used to be that, high bells were set. And that high bells were set, especially when there were deaths involved. And so you wouldn't see people walk because of what happened. And that's kind of changed. The pendulum's kind of swung in our state, with saying that the courts were setting too high a bail, that punishments were too much. And so the atmosphere is towards less punishment, towards less bail. And, it used to be when I would set bail for a murderer in Henderson, I would set it at typically $1 million, especially when proof was really high that the guy or gal did it. And unfortunately, now it's not unusual to see 50,000 in house arrest for a murder.
That's a legislative deal, is what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay.
And changing philosophies.
Yes, sir.
I want to know what happened in traffic court. There is no more traffic court. You walk up to the window and you pay your traffic citation, and there's no pleading, there's no, you just pay your fine. But for another $60, they'll reduce your penalties by half, so it's like, let's make a deal. And I hadn't had a ticket in 40-something years. I got one recently, and it was the officer told me, well, I did you a favor, I only wrote you up for 5 over. Well, that's a lie, because the citation is, the fine is the same from 1 to 10 miles, it's $150 from 1 to 10 miles an hour. You didn't do me any favors, No, sir. Oh, it's $150. I'll just pay the $60. No, sir, that's an additional $60, so it'll be $210. Like, I see, Judge? Yeah, if you post bail, then we'll set a court date. I said, I gotta do this twice? But when I was younger, Billy was younger, you would go on bail. And it was traffic court.
Well,
You got to
I can-
plead your case.
Let's get an answer.
What has happened is some defense attorneys, now one of them, I'm not going to use the name or whatever, that's actually a legislator. Traffic matters were criminal here in the state of Nevada. So you could be fined up to $1,000 or do 6 months in jail because it was a misdemeanor offense. So traffic, speeding, running a red light, and the defense bar actually lobbied real heavily to remove it into a civil arena. And so that's what's happened with the exception of DUIs, hit and runs, reckless drivings. There's certain traffic matters that are still considered criminal. So like when if you get a ticket from the police and up on the right-hand side, if it says criminal, then you're going in front of a judge like you normally would before. You would be talking to a prosecutor and they would tell you what they want to do or what you can do or whatever. In the civil arena, what it does now is that, and what's interesting is the very person who put the bill forward has had to ask judges, because when I was on the bench, it came in when I was a JP, as it came out there. Rodney was still a JP, well, Judge Burr, I'm sorry, was still a JP, and it changed to the civil arena. And in the legislation, they say they have to post a bond. So that's what that is, that amount. And you're not going to get a bondsman that's going to post $150 worth, so you got to pay it if you want to contest it. And so you post that, and then you go in and contest it. And if you're successful, you'll get your money back. If you're not, they already have it. They don't have to fine you then. But that's caused a lot of heartache because there's a lot of people that can't afford that. If you don't have a ticket, if you haven't had a ticket within, I think, a year. I think it's the same in Henderson. You could probably tell me, but each court now that handles traffic, City of Las Vegas, North Las Vegas, Justice Court, Henderson, they actually have what they call a matrix, and they make an offer to you. If you go online, you see on the bottom of your ticket, there's a little thing in there. You go online, and for all you people that know how to use computers, I'm using that facetiously, but so you go online and you tell them that you're not going to contest it, and what they do is if you hadn't had a ticket within a year or 2 years, then you get it automatically reduced to a non-moving violation, but they keep your money, plus you have to pay an additional $100 or whatever for that reduction. Or you can go to traffic school instead of paying the $100, and you go to traffic school, pay for that, and you get that reduction. So it's, yeah. So that's how it's working now. What I was saying when I was talking about the specific legislature that put it in, had no idea that they were requiring the courts to set a bond. But it's in the statute. It requires the courts to set a bond. So the courts are fighting back. They're saying, it's not us. We're following the law. You put that in here. So that's what's happened. It was an effort to remove it from the criminal stigma because of the warrant issue, because what was happening is that individuals weren't paying, weren't showing up, whatever, and a warrant would be issued, and then they'd get arrested and they'd end up in court, and we'd end up going down and spend a whole afternoon on just a warrant, and there'd be 100 people in the courtroom, and they're all in custody, and credit time served, that's what was happening. Except for the ones that were like taxi drivers that were there a million times, and so they removed it from that. But the truth to it though is that some judges are still issuing warrants because people aren't appearing, or they're just blowing it off. They're not doing anything with it, and so that's the only way you can enforce it is with the warrants. So the idea behind it really is flawed. And what's interesting, the gentleman back there was talking about the DUIs. DUIs used to be civil matters until 1986, and then they became a criminal matter. So he went the other way with that. So when I was in high school, when we were in high school, you know, how many times did you get pulled over because you were drinking? They didn't take you.
I understand, even if you post $150, you still don't get to see a judge. No.
You see a hearing master, unless I know in the justice court in Las Vegas. I'm not sure what's happening here, but Judge Burr can tell you.
You have to post the bond to get a trial. So they don't set your trial unless you post the bond.
Right.
So did you get a trial?
Yes.
I was told that you don't. That's what she told me at the window.
You do.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, I have one tomorrow.
I think they call it a contested hearing, but yeah.
Administrative judge. I said, well, who's that?
No, I'm actually going in front of a JP tomorrow. Judge Cellini, she sets them. Judge Sucento was setting them before, so. But there is a traffic committee. That was. He used to be the. Will Ewing. He was doing traffic. He was a traffic commissioner, and then. But I think that they put it back in front of the judge. I can't tell you. It's the way it's set.
Well, on the top of the citation, it says civil infraction.
Right.
So if it's a civil infraction, how can they deduct points from your driving?
So it's the same with DMV. So just because it's civil, if it's still speeding and speeding was 1 point or 2 point, depending on how fast you're going, it's the same for DMV. Just because they changed it to civil, it doesn't alter the DMV points. So you still want them to get them reduced if you can.
But in Henderson, you still can get in front of a judge. We like to say we're different than Las Vegas. Las Vegas is a factory. We are not a factory out here. We still treat individuals as individuals. And each case is different. I'm not a robot. I'm not going to just go 150, 150, 150. Sometimes they'll come up and they'll say there's some mitigating circumstances. And I'll say, okay, it sounds like you need to talk to our city attorney's office. And in Las Vegas, you're not able to do that. But here, our city attorney still takes an interest in traffic matters. And so when I see something like that, so if you were to post the 150, you'd be able to speak to a city attorney, and if there's mitigating circumstances, the citation, the fine can come down, or it can be a different penalty, so there's no points depending on what happened at the time. So I disagree with the civil system because of what you said. People have to come, and I like the old system. One of the reasons it was changed because one of the legislature's friends got arrested on a speeding ticket and had to spend time in custody. And so they made it so certain offenses were just civil, which means you can't be arrested for them, you can't issue a warrant. And those are the lower level traffic offenses. But my suggestion was just say those offenses, you can't arrest people for them, but still give them a court date and still come. But they built this convoluted new system, which was confusing for the public, confusing for the courts, and it was just terrible. So the only thing I can tell you is, if you get a ticket in Henderson, it's a lot different than Vegas. We are more efficient. We actually hear them, and we actually, listen to your story. And things can, it's not the same for every citation, because I feel strongly that, I wasn't elected to be a robot. So, and the city attorneys are reasonable. They'll work with you. So, there's still things you can do. I feel bad that people have to post that money before they can come to court. I really do, even though that means less work for, me. But I guess they would say up north of the legislature, that's progress, right? Yeah.
Any other questions? Otherwise, well, thank you all for coming. Thank you to our panel. Be sure and put March 19th on your calendar.